There are many things in the floating monastery, objects gathered from the span of history, and each object has got a story. And holding the objects helps me remember the stories, and maybe helps bring them to life as well. And this spear is from the story of Fionn McCool. Now, early in Finn's life, before he became a leader of his Fianna, he was making his way in the world, and his way led him to the feast of Samhain in Tara, where Cormac summoned all his warriors, all warriors who would be his warriors, to feast and to celebrate and lay grudges to one side. So it came one Samhain that Fionn arrived in Tara, and there, standing in the hall, was Gall MacMorna, the man who had killed Finn's father. But still, it was a time of peace, so all warriors could sit, and Fionn wasn't recognised and his name wasn't known yet. But he was given a place in the warband, and he could eat the boar and drink the mead of the king. Because this feast was a special feast, and every year it was well attended, but also every year an unwelcome visitor would arrive. And with his harp, this guest would send everyone to sleep, and while all the warriors slept, the hall would be burnt to the ground. None had been known to stand against him, not even Gall MacMorna, the leader of the Fianna at the time, all the Fianna. However, the formal challenge was declared to the court. Who would stand and defend Tara against the fire? Who would stand and defend Tara against the fairy fire that came from underground? And Fionn stood up. He declared that he would defend Tara, but only if, in return, he would be given the leadership of all of Fianna. He would be given the place of his father, and be returned as a leader of men. Well, it's easy to give away a present that may never be claimed, and Cormac gave that gift. As Fionn prepared to defend the Dun, Gall came up to him and gave him a spear, saying that it was his father's spear, and that in its head all the stories of those it had killed were kept. And Fionn asked what Gall would have in return for such a gift. Oh, and Gall said, oh yeah, a third of your successes, a third of your failures, and a third of your treasure. And to Fionn, silver was like foam on the sea, and gold was like autumn leaves that fell so freely. And even at a young age, he already felt that way. So, he thought it was a fair deal. Fionn stood on the ramparts and waited. Music came from the hills, flying in like a flock of small birds. With the sun setting, the sleep descended on all the warriors gathered there. All that is, except Fionn. Spears are kept sheathed. They can cut friends as well as enemies. But Fionn unsheathed his spear and pressed it to his forehead. And with the pain that was stored in the spearhead, he stayed awake. He remembered. And as Alan drew close, playing on his harp, summoning fire and flames, Fionn stayed awake. He took his cloak, beautiful green cloak, and swirled it around the Dun. The fringes fought the fire, and the pale saffron of it spun like gold and glinted in Alan's eyes. And in Alan's eyes, for the first time in many years, also shone fear. He stopped playing. He saw that there was a warrior who could stand against him. And as Fionn of the fair hair stood up, Alan ran. Alan ran like the wind or a swift-footed deer, but Fionn ran faster, following. He picked up his spear, he held it in his hand, and threw it. Whoosh! Just as Alan ran through the barrow door, into the dun, down into the dark damp. The spear flew through as well and hit him. In some stories, Fionn gets his spear back by exchanging it for a hostage, a maiden from the hill who he captures and then trades. In other stories, it's not mentioned. But in all stories, when Fionn goes back to Tara and everyone wakes and finds the hall still alive around them, still standing and not scorched, Fionn is accepted as the leader of the Fianna. And with his men, he fights to defend Ireland from all comers, from attackers from the men of Lochlin, from other war bands inside Ireland. And that's another story and another adventure, and maybe I'll find some other objects to tell it. But for now, the spear can be sheathed and my tongue can be silent.